This is Think Like an Acrobat, a pro series by CircusTalk, and I'm your host, Shenea Stiletto. Think Like an Acrobat is a show designed to help you as an industry professional navigate details big and small that have a direct impact on your career in whatever role you assume within the circus and performing arts industry. In Think Like an Acrobat, we unravel the intricate nature of the industry so that it is easily consumable for everyone. My guest on this episode of Think Like an Acrobat is Master Vocal Coach Robert Poliquin. And today he's going to teach us how to vocalize for ourselves by mastering the circus song. Hi, Robert. Thank you so much for coming on Think Like an Acrobat.
My pleasure, really. If I can help somebody desires to sing in circus companies, I'm very glad.
Thank you. Thank you so much for helping us to learn how to vocalize for ourselves through the methods of a master vocal coach. It's such a pleasure. And Robert, for 17 years, you coach singers, clowns, and acrobats for Cirque du Soleil. And for the past 25 years, you have been identifying the close links that bind body, mind, and voice in your work with a diversified clientele such as singers, actors, instrumentalists, dancers, and public speakers. I know this is going to be a fascinating conversation. I will start with my first inquiry into the world of circ vocalizing with asking, if a singer is coming from a traditional singing background, what must they be prepared for when venturing into the world of circ singing and vocalizing?
That's a good question. So there's nothing traditional about circus singing or circus music, actually, or there is, depending on the music and all, but I think that the singer that comes into circus music should definitely make sure that he's or she is willing to come out of the box. It's unusual settings because it's in a big top, and sometimes you have to deal with the environment inside the big top, which will affect the way you sing, the way your health will be. So yes, it's totally unusual. And again, that'll depend probably on the venue, because you don't only now get cirque shows in big tops, but you also get them in venues. But it's definitely different than what we think, performing or singing is in a show. It's a great experience. You get to meet interesting people. So that's the unusual thing about it, I think. The music will be influenced by different genres of style, and so being prepared to be fluent in other genres than what you do normally is a must. Not being afraid to improvise in different styles. Not just, improvisation is always linked with jazz, but, there's also improvisation in opera or, in Baroque music, for example. So be fluent in many styles, and don't be afraid to explore and listen to other kinds of music than you normally do.
Robert, what difference in technique does it take to sing in the cirque stylized way that has become so popular and central to the medium? And what would you call the language of circus music that has become so popular in our industry?
So technique for me is interesting because, if you know how to sing, you have the ability to sing, you have some technique. So do we say that a technique is proper to a style? You could say that, but I think that knowing yourself and how you use your voice is the main thing, and being able to produce qualities needed in different styles is what you need to be doing. So knowing yourself, knowing your voice, exploring again in different styles. The voice, knowing the voice's parameters is important. It's knowing the anatomy, the physiology of voice, once you start knowing all that, then I like to think that you can do anything. If we think of the first sounds that we heard in circus music in the 80s, I mean, we could think of Allegria, right? So the way the singer sang in that piece, in that song, it was a hoarsely quality sound, and even there was breathiness to it. So a lot of, for the longest time, this was thought of as being a unhealthy way of singing, when actually it depends who's singing it, and depends in what context you're in. So this, for me, that's where I kind of link the style is, so you can do any kind of sounds really if you know your voice well. And that person, by the way, was able to sing with different sounds. It was not the only sound she could produce. So again, for me, circus music is about being fluent in sound making and knowing yourself as much as you can. You were speaking about language. I don't know if you mean the fact that there's no language to circ music. Okay, so yes. So I mean, coming from working with circus, and I mean, we didn't want words because there were always questions of rights. So that was the main deal. So and maybe I'm I'm telling something secret here, but I don't care really. But I mean, the fact that we're using gibberish is what we call the invented language. Made it easier somehow for that aspect, but also just to elaborate some melodies that made it somewhat easier than finding words. So you invent gibberish and it's easier. Also, singing on vowels, so it's easier for the singers. And that's a nice. I would like to make a parenthesis with that, is that if you are going to work for a circus job, and you're not so good with a vowel sound, you can change it for one that is more suitable for you. So that was also the convenience of that. Also, there are shows that we would hire linguists to invent languages that would go with the show. So it's an interesting thing that we had going, and I think that Cirque du Soleil was were the first ones to kind of be able to do this and do it. So good for them, in some ways.
How should a singer prepare for an audition for a Cirque company?
Okay, so I think the first thing you want to do is know the company well, their shows and the music, even I would say the characters, and then make sure that you sing different styles, because they want to hear. The voice is unique, so they want to hear what's unique about you. They want to hear what makes you stand out. So make sure you know them. You listen to their music, you watch the show, obviously, and kind of the music that's linked with the act, because that's also what's very different in maybe in other shows that are very well established, like operas or musical theater, is that you have something, you have the storyline is established. A Cirque show can change. That's something also I forgot to say with your first question, is that you have to be adaptable. When you work for a Cirque show, because it changes constantly. So the form can change, and it can change because of the artist that's doing the act. So the link between knowing that there's a link between the act and the music, so knowing that much also, and also knowing that the music and the singing is about creating the emotion and the heart of the act itself. When you watch an acrobatic act, it can be very technical. So, but as soon as you add music, it becomes more alive and there's more presence. So, knowing that fact, when you prepare that, when you sing something, you sing for an acrobatic act, that you are becoming part of that. It's part of the ensemble. You're not a soloist. You are part of the ensemble. So knowing that and learning the music well, that's what I would say, actually.
Barbara, how should a singer craft their promotional materials to pique the interest of a circus company and target their needs specifically? You spoke on this a bit. What should their demo reel look like and sound like? And what are unique materials that a circus singer needs to include?
So, it's always nice to hear a reel and to know what the singers are able to do in general, globally. It's also nice to have maybe a video of them doing something spontaneous, even if it's a cappella without any accompaniment, just to see, to feel the person a bit more. Because, inside a production, it's always different to see a singer within the production and then seeing them doing something spontaneous. For me, it's a plus, actually. What else could they do? I mean, I said before, know the company well, the music well. Make sure when they do their demos or their reels that they're vocally in shape. It's always nice to hear that, actually, from a singer.
Are there unique needs that a circus singer should have in their contract?
Another good question. Well, I think, this will be funny, but a dehumidifier. Close by. Whether they put their makeup back. I'm saying this as a joke, but that's something that singers have to deal with, is the dryness within where they work. But I think that something else to be aware of, or is to make sure that they have their needs met within the contract. Each individual is different, so wanting to the contract reflecting to your needs as much as possible. Also, get a lawyer. Have it read by a lawyer. They're used to reading fine prints. So I think, and it's always costly, but it's worth it at the end, because, if you're getting a contract, it's because you're going to be hired. So might as well put in the money to get that read by a lawyer.
What is the creative process like in the development of Cirque-specific music for the vocalist?
We're one of the institutions in the world, or I'm talking present because I still feel attached to it, but as for just as same as Walt Disney, so the Disney company, where the vocalist or the singer is accompanied by a coach. And so we have time usually to look into the music and dig into how to sing it so that it reflects what the initial piece wanted, what we wanted out of the singer. So I don't know if it's still that way. But I think that looking into the music as much as you can and listening in to the subtlety making links with maybe other music that they know that resembles it, so that they can really relate to it. Looking at watching the different shows from the company, I think. Knowing about the directors that created it, the composers that created the music. I think the more you know, the better you will be able to give the music, or to perform the music well. That goes also with what I said earlier about technique, so knowing what I can do, and then applying what I can do best to the music that I hear, and not being afraid to add some of your own stuff. They'll tell you if they don't want it, they don't want it anyway. So that's what I would say, actually.
Are there classes or resources that specifically teach how to vocalize in a Circ type way? If so, can you describe what these classes offer, what they are like, and could we hear a sample of what they are like, possibly?
If you listen to other singers, there's so much YouTube where you can hear. Just listening in on that, I think, would be best. And there are no schools. From knowing colleagues that are, professors or teachers at universities and such, I know nothing. I don't know that there is a school that concentrates on Circ music. If you think about Circ music, this will also add to the earlier questions about music. But the circus music is also influenced by world music. So traditional folklore from Jordanian folk traditional music, or klezmer, or whatever traditional folklore music. Listen to that, and that'll kind of give you a sense of what that is. But I think that talking to the resources would be talking to teachers, not teachers, sorry, singers that have sung in shows. There are lots on Facebook that you can, join and talk to if you want. There's no per se in the circus schools. All acrobats kind of take or, do singing, but it doesn't necessarily lead them to be a singer in Cirque shows. Because, if you're a singer, you either went to school, to college or university, and studied jazz or opera or classical or musical theater styles, and that is for me a great foundation. It doesn't mean that you'll fit in necessarily, because, like I said earlier, you have to be willing to get out of your normal or your out of the box, to say like so.
Is a Cirque song or mainstream song more difficult to carry, in your opinion?
I don't believe so. I think what's difficult about singing Cirque repertoire is the sustainability. When we hired singers at first at Cirque, it was kind of we fell in love with the rawness of their voice, and the how do you say, the uniqueness of them. And they might not have been singers or have the technical ability, but still we kind of we liked what they did, so we hired them. And finally, they would not last because of the lack of the technique, because being able to sustain 8 to 10 shows a week. So this is also very important when you consider a job like this. You have to consider that, okay, so I'm off to work 8 to 10 shows a week, and you'll have one day off a week. I would, so it's something to consider. how much shows you give, and you're able to give, and that. So difficulty is to sustaining. Obviously, in all songs there are difficulty, and it'll depend on the composers and what they want, but it should not be, actually. If it's a wide kind of, from my point of view, it's a wide range of, from a less legit to a full legit opera. So it's such a wide, register that, for me, it's cirque music is not, more difficult than a whole opera song, or, a rock song. It's there are some difficulties, but it's not more.
Well, thank you so much, Robert. We have about 1 more minute left.
Yes.
And if you would like to leave us with your last thoughts or comments about your perspective for vocalizing within the circus industry and cirque environments.
Well, to finish, I think health issues are important in singing and doing shows, like I said, 8 to 10 shows a week. So a singer in a circus show has to have a healthy life, and I always think of it as being a monk-like life. It's like that also. I know from knowing acrobats and athletes that's the way it has to be. Now it all depends on the individual, but taking this seriously and having a healthy way of life is important for a cirque singer. I would end like that.
Thank you so much, Robert. You're so brilliant and so amazing. Thank you so much for coming on to Think Like an Acrobat and sharing all of this wisdom and expertise and all of your experience with us. Thank you so much.
Thank you for the opportunity. It was it was a pleasure for me to do this.
Thank you, Robert, for teaching us how to think like an acrobat, because to think like an acrobat means infusing vocal acrobatics with an rhythmically enhanced production in order to set the tone for onstage magic. This is the AAA segment, or Ask an Acrobat portion of the show, where I answer questions that didn't make it into the final cut of the interview, or where I share my own reflections on the episode topic. This was a fascinating episode of the Think Like an Acrobat Pro Series. I had such an amazing time speaking with Robert, and also too with his perspectives on the world of the circus cirque singer, which is so unique and so niche still. Me and Robert were speaking about that afterwards, about how there is such a small community. It's hard to find a vocal coach that specializes in cirque music or circus music and in that genre. And it's there's not a defined school for that, which maybe out of this episode, someone or some company will be interested in creating that, because I definitely speak to singers all over the world throughout my career who always have a lot of questions, even if they've gotten into the business, if they've come from mainstream and then they've cycled over to being a cirque singer or circus singer. They're always looking for assistance and for help. And Robert wanted to stress so much about the importance of having a proper vocal coach to assist you throughout your journey as a circus singer, and how crucial that is. He also too wanted to stress again about how important it is to put in your contract that the company will be responsible to help you to rehabilitate your voice after your contract is finished. And he said that he couldn't be more hypersensitive to that fact, and that that's actually a possibility to be able to do that, and very smart to do. He also wanted to say, in terms of the performance aspect of being on stage with acrobats and interacting, that with new performers and with new singers, it's very difficult for them to get into the habit of working with an inner ear monitor. And it's usually an issue for singers. And so you should definitely be prepared for this aspect when you get on stage interacting with acrobats. He also wanted to remind that the singer is a musician of the show and isn't usually a defined character, but is a part of the band and is working alongside with the band and with the musicians to create the character and to be a part of the show. Robert also wanted to add additionally that going into acting school or mime school is really useful for interacting on stage as a circus singer, and that circus singers sometimes don't always understand how gracefully they need to act on stage. And so this can be very limiting. And he also wanted to add that being mindful and going into somatic movement, which is mindful movement, is very important, as singers can oftentimes think that their voice is their only instrument and that it's completely disconnected from their body, and that this is not true, and especially that the mind, body, and voice are connected. And this is very crucial when you are in a performance show where you are with other movement-based artists around you. And that this is something that you should very much take into consideration when you are going to be a part of an ensemble. Robert also wanted to stress as well that taking care of your voice like a monk is something that will lead you to a very long, successful career. He said that it's very, very difficult to carry so many shows per week for any kind of cirque singer. And this is something that I've experienced firsthand as well with so many singers I've worked with, that them trying to figure out how to maintain their voice, losing their voice, not feeling well, and also to trying to adjust to this type of system, which people might think, oh, it's easy, they're just singing, and we're using our voices, or we're using our bodies as acrobats, and so it's not the same way, but it is. You have to do your vocal exercises that I hear the singers of the shows working on and doing and preparing for an hour pre-show, just like we warm up our bodies. And seeing the singers that are very mindful of that has really impacted me, because I've worked with excellent circus singers and cirque singers all over the world for many, many years. And seeing them imbibe the music and taking it to heart, and the type of meditative quality that there is. I remember when I was working in Veracay for Cirque du Soleil, and the singer there, Isa, she is legendary. And she would ask me before every single performance that she sang for me on stage, what type of energy I wanted to bring into the act, what I needed from her. Did I need grounding? Did I need fire? Did I need more energy? Did I need something more fluid like water? And she would insert that quality into the song and into the music that she was going to be projecting for me during that day. And so I can't stress again how magical and how beautiful that is. And everybody loves our cirque singers, our circus singers, and the music. And it's amazing to see the mastery behind that through the vision and through the eyes and perspective of the masterful vocal coach such as Robert. So ask an acrobat so that you can think like an acrobat. Here are the top 5 takeaways from Let's Vocalize for Ourselves, Mastering the Circus Song with Robert Poliquin. Number 1, invest in and find the right vocal coach that works for you. Number 2, understanding the origins of circus music is important. You should know where the music comes from. Number 3, take care of your voice like a monk, and utilizing the Feldenkrais method is recommended. Number 4, a voice rehabilitation clause in your contract should be non-negotiable. And number 5, properly preparing for an audition and submission is crucial to getting the job. Thank you for joining us on this episode of Think Like an Acrobat, where we learn how to vocalize for ourselves with master vocal coach Robert Poliquin. Please make sure to send in your video or audio questions about future episodes to news@circustalk.com. Stay tuned for the next episode of Think Like an Acrobat with your host, Shenea Stiletto.